The views and opinions expressed by callers, guests, and hosts do not necessarily reflect those of the Black Talk Radio Network and Black Talk Media Project. Black Talk Radio is new black media for the new millennium. Good afternoon. You are tuned in to Black Talk Radio News. My name is Scotty Reed. I'm broadcasting from behind the enemy lines that I call USA Inc. Look that up if you do not know what that means, why I use that term. Just trying to spread some truth and bring some clarity to what is going on in this place they call the United States of America. A lot of the people here, besides having a problem with literacy rates, they are purposely taught false history. So look that up, United States Incorporated. Look it up in Google and you'll find some truth on that. So welcome to today's broadcast of Black Talk Radio News. It is December the 13th, 2016. It is a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I had asked for some rain last week, and we've gotten at least about 4 days out of 5 days. We've been getting rain. Nothing like flood conditions or anything like that, but we are experiencing a drought like many other states are across this country. I had watched a video of this report on the drought that's in Alabama, where some of, like, say, the farmers who raise cattle farmers, I guess is what you would call them, and the grass is not growing. It is not green in Alabama. It's not green in Alabama. Therefore, the cattle don't have anything to eat. And once this particular man they were highlighting, runs out of hay and what have you that he has stored up, I think he got about 3 months left. And once that's gone, he's going to have to, I guess, sell those cattle off or send them to slaughter or what, but it would totally destroy his farm. Drought-like conditions. They showed a picture of the local river there and how it had dried up, and it looked just like the Catawba River here in North Carolina. So it is serious out there. There is a debate, people on both sides of the issue of climate change, but here we are, 2 weeks out, about maybe 3 weeks, 2 weeks and a half left in the month of December. It would be cold here in North Carolina. We've only had a few cold days, and it's mostly been raining. So we'll see if that will be the trend for this winter here in North Carolina. So does global warming have anything to do with that? I tend to stay out of that debate, and I just simply say it cannot be good to put pollutants into the planet, whether that's into the atmosphere, because we see that with soil being contaminated, rivers being contaminated. So it makes no sense. We can work towards the technology. They probably already got it for clean burning energy. Clean burning, where you don't even have to burn solar power, whatever. Let's use our ingenuity, our intelligence to just get off of it. Don't even have that debate. I don't think anybody can argue that it was a bad thing that they started restricting the amount of lead that's in gasoline. Again, let's just think logically and not get sucked into the political and everything, even though politics control that. But what I mean is where you have a political partisan view and you're not just looking at the facts. Could this be harmful, all this pollutants? Is it causing these abnormal? Well, I'm not going to go into 100 years, 200, thousands of years. This has happened before and all. Look, It is just not good to keep polluting the air we breathe, the soil that we grow food from, and whatever's causing it. So it's a lot. It's a lot of natural disasters occurring here in the United States. Again, North Carolina was recently impacted by Hurricane Katrina, but that's not what I really want to talk about today. I do have a number of news stories that I would like to share with you. I may spend the first half hour or the first hour talking about this terrorist, this uncharged terrorist, because he ain't been charged with terrorist charges. And today I have more information that not only confirms some of the things that I had stated, other people who were analyzing why he chose Emmanuel Church. And now we find out that some of the things that we were thinking of why he may have chose that church specifically have been confirmed from his own writings. The terrorist Dylann Roof, the white terrorist Dylann Roof, because he believed in white supremacy. But it also had white supremacy is political. It's legislated. White supremacy, what people call white supremacy, is legislated by law that has its roots in Virginia colonial law, which actually Virginia is one of the stories with inmates dying in a jail up there. And it looks like the Fed's going to investigate, but the slave codes of Virginia, that is when they started legislating race, coming up with racial classifications. And it's rooted in that. And it's political. Law is political. Okay? That's how you get laws on the books, through politicians. Do you not? Unless you have what they call ballot initiatives, where that is the only direct democracy you actually have in this country. So anyway, Dylann Roof, just so much more coming out of his farce of a trial down there, because he should have many co-defendants with him. I understand one of his friends did plead guilty, who knew about the attack and what he was planning and didn't tell anyone. Well, as far as he told you, he didn't tell anyone. The whole KKK racist terrorist network could have known about that pending attack. And they didn't tell anyone. So he just told you, when you came after him, that, nobody else knew. But he should have many co-defendants, including these people responsible for propaganda. And I would also include the school system. I would indict anybody in government capacity or in an entertainment capacity. When I say entertainment, I'm talking about these historical Hollywood movies. Those two words should not be even put together. Okay, Hollywood does not make historical movies. They make movies based on history, but the facts may be twisted or left out altogether. Everything is subject to the artist's interpretation of that history. So I'm putting everybody as co-defendants who have been pushing this notion that the 13th Amendment abolished slavery. See, because Dylann Roof was a race soldier. You don't have to be a cop to be a race soldier. He picked up arms and he killed people based on the system's racial classification of those people. So he's a race soldier. He's a soldier. Okay. So, but he targeted these particular churches. I mean, it's just so many issues. That's why I'm saying I may devote a whole hour to this topic, but got a lot of other important news to share. But why isn't he being charged as a terrorist? Even the federal government, because he has a federal trial pending, it's a hate crime. What about the terrorist charges? The same that you charge any of these Muslims or Arabs or black Muslims that you charge them with. This was a terrorist attack. And so this is a show trial. It's a fraud. I don't care what the verdict is. It's a fraud. This shows that America, the United States, to all of the people who listen to our network around the world, this is evidence that the United States war on terror is a fraud. Because when white people commit acts of terrorism in this country, they do not get treated like people in other countries or non-white American citizens. As I mentioned the other day, they killed at least 3 American citizens without trial, without charge, and what have you. And these white terrorists behind these enemy lines are not being treated thusly. Now, Dylann Roof targeted, also in this information, he targeted black churches. Besides Emmanuel, he had a whole list of churches. And don't forget, they caught him did he make it to my county? But I know locally it was reported that a woman who lives in the county that I live in is the one who spotted him on the highway, where it appears now he was on his way to other churches to gun down. Wednesday night, everybody know where black Christians gonna be, right? The faithful, as they say. They're going to be in the church doing Bible study unless they have to work or whatnot. So it appears that he was going to target those churches. He had a whole list of churches. I guess he was going to drive up I-85, or he might have been coming down, what highway is that? Is that 271 coming out of that area of South Carolina, coming across Cleveland County? So, but he was on a route, and he had already mapped out, apparently, the black churches. Who knows where he was going to end it? Possibly was going to drive to Charlotte, since there's more black people in Charlotte than anywhere else in North Carolina. So he probably was going to end it in a black church on Bible study night and murder these people. Now, again, why did he choose the black church? Because it represents political power or any kind of resistance to white supremacy? No, only one church was targeted for that reason, and that was the only church that he got to attack before this woman saw the news, saw him, and called the police, and then they later took him to Burger King and all of that. See how they be treating these terrorists, man? But anyway, he chose them because they were meek. That's another word, whether they use it properly or not, for weak. And there's some truth to that. That was his perception of black Christians. Okay, is that they are weak, they are not going to defend themselves, they are following in the tradition of Dr. King, even though that's distorted. He only used that as a political tactic for marches, which his last march, he did allow armed people to scout out ahead to take care of any white terrorists hiding in the woods. Okay, he changed, but that's the image that PBS, your public broadcasting networks, and everybody else, Hollywood, is present him like that was what he was telling black people to do in their homes when the lynchers come riding up in the night with their torches and their white sheets in their hoods, and they're dragging you. No, he was not telling black people not to pick up their guns and defend themselves with deadly force. But that's the image, and that's the perception that Dylann Roof also got. And then we talked about black Christians that seem like whenever there's a tragedy like this, the media asks them leading questions to solicit the response they looking for, which is, oh, I forgive them and blah, 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 blah. But I wasn't hearing that from one of the survivors on the stand. She was like, he need to be in the pit of hell, burning it. She wasn't talking about, Lord, forgive him because he don't know. But see, they catch these people when they're emotional after these tragedies, and then they'll like throw some scripture on them to lead them. And, oh, this is how you pose. What do you think, Dr. King? Well, you know what I'm saying? They lead these people with questions. And so now all we do is proceed that all black people who practice Christianity makes them nonviolent. But that isn't why if that was true, that isn't what he believed about Emmanuel. He did do some reading of history. And unfortunately, Emmanuel chose not to follow in the traditions that was laid out for them, before the racist terrorist crackers in South Carolina burnt the church down and lynched some of its members after they were the center of resistance to slavery, not just slavery, but white supremacy, and organized between free black people and enslaved Africans, a rebellion, and they got sold out. They really did. Nate Parker's movie, no, nobody sold out Nat Turner. That was fiction. That was fiction. That never actually, there was no little boy who went and told it and all. No, they just didn't have the arms to meet that superior force when they came up against that militia. But that actually did happen in Gullah Jack's and Denmark Vesey's rebellion. Somebody snitched them out. Somebody was angling for some butter biscuits like many Negroes do today to keep the system of slavery going. But again, slavery was never abolished. Somebody should have told Dylann Roof that. Then he wouldn't have been feeling so inferior or like white people had, or white supremacy had lost so much ground. If the education that he had taught him that, look, after the war, during the war, there was a meeting between Abraham Lincoln and leaders of the Confederate Army, and they decided that too many racist crackers was being killed on both sides, so we're going to call a truce. And so, but since so many black people, 200,000 plus, were fighting to end slavery and abolish it, well, we know we've been practicing racism against most of them. Most of them ain't literate. So we'll come up with some tricky language, put it in the 13th Amendment, and we'll tell everybody that slavery was abolished, but there's the exception clause. So that's what happened. That's what happened. How do you let traitors participate in a congressional debate in passing, just like nothing happened? Oh, we just didn't get through fighting the war to abolish slavery. Come on, Confederate generals, Confederate senates, we welcome you back in with open arms. Now let's work together to end slavery. Give me a break. These were traitors, quote unquote traitors, but were they? They weren't treated like traitors, just like these racist terrorist crackers ain't treated like terrorists today, like Dylann Roof. He ain't being charged by the government, the U.S. government, or anybody other government with terrorism. All right? So lots to talk about here. We have to be careful of the image that we are putting forth. This is common. Shouldn't say common, but this is logical. This is logical. You put forth a weak front in front of your enemies, guess what? Your enemy is going to be emboldened to attack you. That's how bullies do. And that's all these racist crackers in the United States have ever done. It's bully, gang up on people. They had the technology, the guns, and nobody else had them. And so they bully people. When you put forth a weak front, your enemy will attack you. And apparently he saw the black Christians as being weak. Because he also mentioned, I don't want to go to the hood, which I think, of course, if he's following the programming, he thinks the hood is the only place that drug dealers hang out, right? He's not looking to the CIA, which we'll talk about their latest drug dealing that they're behind. They're behind more than just fake news stories, okay? But anyway, we'll get to that and much, much more. So let me just go ahead and give out the phone number, 704, I believe it's 802. I'm trying to memorize all of our numbers. Let me just give out the toll-free number. That's 866-510-9025, 866-510-9025. You can also participate from anywhere in the world by hitting us up on uberconference.com/Black Talk Radio Network. You'll find some toll-free numbers for your country there, or you can call in if you got headphones and what have you. So let me get to some of the other stories. I'm ready to just dive in on this. As y'all can tell, I'm kind of like geeked about this conversation because it needs to be had. We when the propaganda media comes shoving a camera up in your face at one of these terrorist attacks, just be quiet. Just don't say anything, but don't come out your mouth like, oh, we forgive him before the person has even been punished. You can't give, man, he ain't asked for your forgiveness. He ain't asking for forgiveness. Even if you believe in Christianity, okay, which I grew up in and I practice a form of. I am not that stereotype, okay? So that's why I don't like to hear black people tearing each other down, saying that this religion or that religion or combination of beliefs, and because there are beliefs. You may see some evidence and some signs to bolster your beliefs, but why do we say that's why people is the way they are? That's why they so passive because of Christianity and all that. Nat Turner was a Christian and he was not passive. So again, we have to be honest and examine all of these things. But that is a problem with Christians. And I don't know if it's something we could do anything about unless black people all decide as a general rule, no talking to the media. Let's have that kind of campaign. No, don't ask me no questions unless you asking me about one of these white terrorists. Then I'm going to tell you what I saw that white terrorist do. Otherwise, don't ask me no questions about how I feel about this white terrorist running up in the church. Why don't you go ask his mama that question? Don't ask me. Go ask him. I cannot give you no insight into, well, yeah, we can. I can get inside their heads. But yeah, we had to stop allowing people to create our perceptions of reality. In the media, white people that control the media do put that out there. That black people are nonviolent and weak. Well, they do both, though. It's like first, on one hand, it's like we're the most violent people on the planet, bunch of criminals, thugs, and rapists and murderers. The same thing Donald Trump been saying about Mexicans, which is a nationality, it's not a race. But on the other hand, they had the other extreme. Oh, these are just lambs that's just ready to be led to the slaughter. But see, Dylann Roof, he didn't want to go to the hood. He said this because guess what? They might shoot back. So again, these are cowards. They cowards. They look to ambush the weak. This happened, and this was not national news, and you can check my archives, and you can Google this, because there was some local news reporting. When that flag was coming down in South Carolina, some racist crackers around here, they had a little flag rally. Nobody bothered them, freedom of speech, whatever. Go out there, wave little flags and practice white supremacy. I'm glad to see just how many of you there are. Helps me with my intelligence gathering. Yes, show your face. Go out there, wave that flag. But when that happened, one of them got emboldened, thought he was going to ride up, and this is in Gastonia, which has another high population of black people concentrated. It is a city. It's not as large as Charlotte, not even nowhere close, not even half. But lots of black people living there, and people have always segregated themselves because they want to live around people who look like them. It's not because of any forced segregation or anything. That's just the natural patterns of where people live. Even though there's a lot of mixed housing and stuff and neighborhoods around this area, but they went into the quote unquote hood. Maybe Dylann Roof saw this news story because, again, they caught him making his way up through this area. So he probably saw this local news story. This dude was in his Jeep with his girlfriend. I guess he might have been showing off for his girl, right? And they gonna come to the hood in Gastonia waving their little Confederate flag, and somebody took shots at them and almost killed them because the bullets ended up right there above where the rear view mirror is. Now, he had the top of the Jeep off so he could wave his little terrorist flag, but I don't know who shot at him. They say it was some black people who shot at this dude, And then he ran away in his Jeep. He got away. He went to the courthouse where they have a monument to the Confederate racist terrorists who want to keep people in slavery, who really won but just don't know it. But anyway, he goes there to the courthouse and calls the popo. Here come the popo. I even played the 911 call. This dude was almost in tears. He was in hysterical. He was like, I'm going to go put my flag up because this just ain't worth it. Yeah, because he found out that black people in this county ain't going to allow you to terrorize it. We will shoot back. Okay? So maybe Dylann Roof saw that. And he was like, well, maybe I just better go target some meek black people who praying and studying and being so welcoming to white strangers up in the sanctuary. Let me target them. Because I had this perception of them being weak, being unarmed, being nonviolent, not even willing to protect their own lives. And I guess he was right on Emmanuel Church. I guess he was right. He was right. So that is what I want to most talk about. But today, also, President Obama continuing with the lies I talked about yesterday, pushing the CIA fake news and the fake corporate news. And he goes on the Daily Show with this black person they then went to South Africa and got. And well, I ain't gonna say they went and got him. He probably came here seeking employment, but they chose him. And now he gets to be a showcase black face on corporate media, helping them lie to black people. Okay, do they feature on like the Daily Show? Have they been on the right side of issues on news stories and stuff like that and presented that? Yes, but they also, in a covert way, also push the company line. And who is the company? USA Inc. So they brought President Obama on there to do a 1 hour interview. It wasn't the usual night of reporting some news, making some jokes, reporting political news, making some jokes, making people laugh and all of that. But no, this was serious. This comedy show was serious. So President Obama was on there to push this myth that the Russians hacked into the election. So I got some audio on that. Ron Paul on election hack. Do we believe Snowden and Assange, which I say call them whistleblowers, or you gonna believe old crusty John McCain? This man has never seen a war that he didn't want to send young Americans to die in because he is totally in the pockets of the military-industrial complex, and as well as his girlfriend, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. So Ron Paul saying, who do you believe? Do you believe the whistleblowers, people who risk their lives and freedom to tell you some truth? Or you gonna believe these old two crusty, racist white supremacists who always want to send American children out to die? Y'all looking for somebody to blame them too for why now white people's deaths exceed their births. Blame them too, because, they, again, never saw a war that they didn't want to send Americans to die in. So, yeah, blame them. But who do you believe? That's a logical question. So you're going to listen to this, to President Obama, CEO of USA Inc. This man, we've exposed him on different programs of catching him in so many lies. So many lies. But yet he on there talking about and pushing this CIA crap about Russia influencing the elections. Well, what about the emails that show that the Clinton campaign had their little plants, probably CIA assets, in the media, and which ones would give her interviews and not ask her tough questions? Ellen. And go on the Ellen show and do some dancing and do some hip hop and not ask her any serious questions about human trafficking and 21st century slavery or none of that. So why aren't they investigating the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign for trying to influenced the American elections in an unethical way. Probably broke some laws too. So people, man, stop allowing the propaganda to create a false perception of reality for you. So also, Keith Ellison, he's under an attack. I reported on him about a week or so ago. This one from not the Anti-Defamation League, which claims that it works for the civil rights of Jewish people all over the world, except for in case they're black Jews or Ethiopian Jews. Then we ain't got nothing to say about the Ashkenazi Jews that's practicing racism and white supremacy in Israel right now. But I reported on them, part of this campaign, and they were even called out by other Jewish media, but were on this campaign to stop Keith Ellison, a Muslim American who happens to be black and a progressive Democrat who backed a Jew named Bernie Sanders, who quite wasn't as Zionist. I'm not saying he wasn't, because Bernie Sanders does believe in Zionism, just a more humane brand of Zionism. But Keith Ellison backed him for president before the DNC and Hillary Clinton campaign, and the Washington Post and many others influenced and hacked the DNC primary to prevent him from getting it. So now, I told y'all it's a civil war on so many levels in the government right now. This is intra-party Democratic Party war. Keith Ellison wants the millennials and those who were supportive of the policies of Bernie Sanders to take over the machine, the corporation known as the DNC, so that they could put more aggressive agenda and more progressive candidates, and the corporatist Democrats that like to practice slavery and racism probably just as much as Republicans do. They're fighting for that position. They're battling for the future. So this new attack doesn't come from a Jewish group, but it comes from a right-wing conservative group who is pro-Zionist. Don't care, they put Zionists first, Americans second. All right. So, I mean, he's under an attack. They filed some kind of ethics complaint against Keith Ellison, claiming he's using resources for his congressional resources in his bid for to be the next chairman of the DNC. So again, this is nothing but the underhandedness attacks. This is how racism and white supremacy work. Story I mentioned at the beginning I was going to get to, rural U.S. babies, that's code word for white babies, are the hardest hit by this opiate addiction at birth. Reuters is reporting as a growing number of U.S. babies are being born suffering with withdrawal syndrome after exposure to prescription opiates or heroin in utero. Rural infants appear much more at risk than city newborns, a new study suggests. So what this is just confirming some things that I have said, is that the majority of black people learned our lessons after the CIA dumped all that cheap cocaine into the community and Rick Ross turned it into crack cocaine. And we had all these crack babies being born. The CIA did that to fund their dirty wars, and it worked against the black community, and nobody cared because, hell, it's only black people and black babies. Who cares? And it's helping us put them back into slavery. So who cares? You know, white people in general are not programmed to be empathetic to black people when they are the subject of injustice. All right? But now look, now you got, what would we call them? Don't want to dehumanize them. These are innocent babies who are victims of yet another CIA, U.S. intelligence government program to fund more dirty wars, to fund probably these Syrian rebels. All that good Afghan heroin ain't walking across that water. It ain't flying through the air. It ain't that many criminal organizations that smuggle it into here. It's corporations. Again, all we had to do is study Vietnam, how major corporations and even members of the military. And now we got private contractors was smuggling all that dope out of Vietnam that was coming here to the U.S. All right, that's what's going on here. That's what's going on. Like Pat, I mentioned on Tando yesterday. I said, what's his name? Pastor Nehemiah. I'm probably saying his German name incorrectly, but it talks about first they came for the communists. I was not a communist, so I didn't say anything. Then they came for the gypsies. I wasn't a gypsy, so I ain't say nothing. Then they came for the retards, and I wasn't retarded. I didn't have no mental disability, so I didn't say nothing. And then they came for me, and there was nobody left to stand up for me. It don't stop. The oppression do not stop with one group. So now you did nothing, you said nothing, you demanded no justice from your government, USA Inc., for flooding the black community with all this dope, creating crack babies, and now it's happening to your community. The same people is behind. They never changed the playbook. Mr. Fuller would call these expendable. No, he wouldn't call them crackers. I would. See, the system look at these poor white people as expendable crackers. They don't care because they ain't really white. They Irish. They Scottish, they something else. They are not true-blooded white people. We only created that classification so we could trick them into being our foot soldiers of racism and give them some privileges, but if we got to sacrifice them, we'll sacrifice them. I don't think the black community ain't shooting up heroin like that. It's not really affecting black babies, but it's affecting all these, what Reuters is calling them, rural babies. Come on, just be honest. Just call them white babies. That's who you're talking about. White babies in Gaston County, probably born meth addicted. And I do not support putting these people in jail. Get them some help. Get them some help. Prison is not the place for them. But see, I'm a person who practices justice. I'm not looking for revenge because of all the black mothers you threw into slavery because they had crack-addicted babies. Probably still putting them into prison. So somebody do the research and see how many of these white mothers with these opiate-addicted babies is being put into prison and charged with crimes. I bet you will find a racial disparity, but I'm not looking for you to be mistreated like I was mistreated or my people were mistreated. My group that this racist system has put into this classification. I'm not looking for revenge. I'm looking for justice. But I bet you the data will show that they ain't arresting these mothers, these drug-addicted mothers who need help for having heroin addicted babies like they was doing in the 80s, in the 90s. No, now we're hearing a whole lot, including my own county. I talked about it the other day. Senator Tom Tillis and Representative Patrick McHenry and the local sheriff announcing, I think he was city police or whoever, announcing this program, this diversion program. Let's not throw these crack babies' mothers into jail and prison. Let's put them into a diversion program. We don't want to put them in jail. We don't want to put them in prison. We need reform. We should be compassionate to our brothers and sisters. It's all rather disgusting, but I'll accept that. I'm going to keep pushing for abolition, total abolition of these prohibition. Instead of resources going to put people into slavery, those resources should be available for them if they choose to get help for their drug addiction. And it was your legal drugs that started all of this, written by doctors. Let me see. Feds investigating conditions at jail after inmate deaths in Virginia. So the Justice Department is doing this investigation, but you got a couple of supervisors in Milwaukee County in Wisconsin where our friend, no, he ain't my friend. Let me not even say words like that, even playing. Our enemy David Clark, don't matter if he got melanated skin. He's the perfect example of why it is. You cannot deny that there were black people who was practicing chattel slavery, cause they were. May not have been as many as it was racist rich crackers. Very few black people could afford to own slaves. But there are, if you study the historical record, there are some that you will find. And they may have been more humane than the white slavers, but slavery is slavery. And David Clark, I don't care if he got a white parent, they are full, I don't know what you gonna call them. This is still a racist system and a racist classification. I use black as a cultural reference because black people chose that. The government did not choose that name for us. They chose African Americans. But they, excuse me, but they are targeting us based on a classification that is racist in itself, or even having the classification. So David Clark is a representative of a modern black slaver. So let's not get into these arguments, oh, black people didn't practice slavery, because they practicing it now. I told you about that HBCU black professor of business on a radio show telling black people to get their money together and invest in jails so that we can make money off of these doggone Mexicans. So don't say that, let's not get sidetracked into stupid debate. Let's just simply acknowledge the very few and then move on, and let's talk about how we're going to end slavery. So David Clark, a racist black slaver up there in Milwaukee, now you got 2 supervisors calling for an outside review of the jail deaths. Because guess what? Sheriff David Clark is investigating himself, his own department. And we're supposed to trust him on why it was the pregnant woman who was having the baby and nobody would take her to the hospital to have the baby or call for medical help. How it was her fault that her baby died. Or the people who may have been addicted to drugs and died because you denied them medical care. He's blaming them for being addicted to drugs. So these men are now asking for, these supervisors are asking for an outside investigation, but I don't hear them calling for the Justice Department to investigate the federal government. But again, I do not look to the federal government to solve the problem of racism when they are the problem of racism and practicing slavery. So I'm just pointing things out. And finally, we'll talk about, if I have time, war on fake news, part of a war on free speech, as it seems that people of different political ideologies, left wing, right wing, whatever label you want to put on them, they are starting to see the corporate media and the U.S. government and Democratic operatives pushing this fake news stuff as a threat to all our speech, all our free speech. So I was kind of like, okay, townhall.com is a right-wing racist website, even though they try to pretend not to be, because they'll showcase articles by Allen West. All right, y'all know who Allen West, the former representative out of Florida who was a Republican and a practicer of slavery, supporting the racist system for butter biscuits and what have you. So they would feature him. So they try to pretend like they not racist, but their underlying ideology is based in racism and white supremacy. But now they are starting to see, just like other alternative media on the other end of the spectrum, are also identifying that the U.S. government apparatus, the CIA, all those agencies, different senators, President Obama, the corporate media, this is an attack on free speech. They trying to take Black Talk Radio Network down. They trying to take townhall.com down. They trying to take Prison Planet down. They trying to take Ron Paul Liberty Report website down. They trying to take Black Agenda Report down. And it goes on and on. This is an assault See, these people don't care nothing about the Constitution. They don't obey the letter of the law. They are lawbreakers. But they will, so it shouldn't surprise you that these people don't care nothing about the First Amendment. Not that I rely on that document, because I'm a human being endowed by my Creator with inalienable rights. Hate to quote that, but most people know it. And that's the way I look at it. I'm a human being. I don't depend on you to tell me what I can and cannot say. I don't respect your illegitimate letters of law, as Dave was talking about yesterday on Tando. So that is very serious war for information. This is a propaganda war that independent media outlets and corporate media siding with the U.S. government. This is a war for your minds, really. And I hate to quote that racist Alex Jones, but that's one of their taglines, InfoWars, because there's a war for your mind. But literally there is. So they're trying to shut us down. So I think that's interesting that you're seeing independent sites of different political ideologies, persuasions, seem like they all getting the message and putting out to their readers that this is a First Amendment speech a violation that our government and these elected so-called leaders who took oaths to the Constitution, which includes the Bill of Rights, and they just ignoring it. So again, this is why I give no legitimacy to Republicans or Democrats. Step out the matrix. A crook is a crook. It's much simpler to just judge people based on their actions and whether or not they are practicing justice. So when I come back, I'm going to share some of this article with you about Dylann Roof. I've already given out the phone numbers if you want to hit star to comment. Just do that at any time. And I'll see you on the board and I'll come to you and acknowledge you. But I do need to take a station identification break 15 minutes ago. So I'm going to take it now. Also kick some message music as I parch my throat. And we'll be back with this news about Dylann Roof seeing black people, black Christians specifically, as being meek, which can be interpreted as being weak, unwilling to defend themselves, and that's why he was targeting. And he had a list of churches. And this man has not been charged with terrorism. Open up your eyes. That should tell you all you need to know about your government. It's Black Talk Radio News. We'll be back.
May appear a confusing blur of activity, each ant doing its own thing, but it can't be. Somehow the ants coordinate their actions so that large insects are overwhelmed, killed and carried back to the base.
Peers is dying and my people are suffering. The money's still low, you should see how they budgeting. Watch what comes out your mouth. People are suffering. It's elementary, they want us all gone eventually. Peers is dying, people are suffering. The money's still low, you should see how they budgeting. Peers is dying, and my people are suffering. Cause the money's still low, they want us all gone eventually. I swear to God, living in this economy's like a robbery. The government taxing me when they owe me for my property. You niggas act like you happy to live in poverty. When I feel like a king, I gotta make these fools acknowledge me. I'm royalty and loyal to the feeling of it. The contrast make it look thuggish. We talk, walk, and look rugged naturally. Nothing sad to see, we all a part of this tragedy. I'm mad at you, so why you mad at me?
We headed for the times of the 9, watch out 6. Sun cycle on the rise, moon cycle out the mix. Living on this planet of the snakes and the crucifix. Pardon self as I unk my way through, marching with my A-boom boom, making my debut. Like great balls of fire, nothing could save you. In these replenishing times, I honor my dead, making my ancestors proud when it's off with your head.
Does my pencil possess potential to change mentals? Yes. Show what you pen in this packet, the essential less. What is essential to keep it? The sharp is against you, yes. What is essential to keep it like a temple? Blast, alter the temple, keeping the beat simple and fresh. While they whimper and rest, I'm intuition like the simplest gas. Into tradition, I'm on a mission until I transition to give the up and coming a better existence.
I seen a beggar scorn, reaching for a coin or two. The older we get, it switches up the point of view. And they anointed you, leader of the free world. Desolate mind's confined to the B-girl. The most benevolent is evident who I be. Graffiti on the wall, the crew, Drew Ali. Zoo, true, I keep shifting on the paradigm. Raise the vibration, then go prepare the mind.
Define magnificent, rare gem. Dig deep, the omnipotent, all-seeing. I just speak the game plan. I pray for niggas, amen. Fat Sharpie, spray can, I'm made man. With suede vans, no street skating, no beat taking. For Pete's sake, he's a beast quaking, the scene shaking. No mistaking, the ants conquer the elephants. FTP, RBG, the rest development.
What's the ant's secret that makes them the most efficient predators on Earth, consuming more meat than lions, tigers, and wolves combined?
I'm way medicated, puff lying, lace sedated, and stay dedicated to culture that created the essence of the lessons now delivered in my presence. Kalanji called upon me, so now I pose the question: how is it that the blacks aim in whips and chains, having nothing else to lose and everything to gain? Now niggas entertain for some whips and chains, a white dame and some fame.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
If I find my way home, yeah. Wouldn't it be crazy? But you still amaze me. Wouldn't it be crazy?
And welcome back to Black Talk Radio News. My name is Scotty Reed again. I'm broadcasting from behind these enemy lines of USA Inc. on this rainy Tuesday afternoon. I'm so thankful for the water. I just really am. You just don't know. So then I wanted to share some of these details about Dylann Roof. Let me just pull up something here. And the Chicago Tribune published this article. Dylann Roof had list of other black churches in his car. Now, I shared all the stories in BTRcommunity.com, trying to provide a safe space for black people online so that you ain't spied on and terrorized by the popo and the corporations and everybody else. So all our news is posted inside of BTRcommunity.com. I did make this post public, so you don't have to have a membership to see it, but it's for today's news. And let me pull up the article and share some of these details. It's a very long article. It's a very good article, I would say. This was by the Tribune News Service, so a number of people more than likely contributed to this to this article that was published yesterday. So I'm going to just share some of the stuff. When he was arrested, the man accused of killing 9 people during a Bible study in Charleston Church had a list of other area black churches in his car, law enforcement officials testified Monday. So again, he was caught either in my county or just outside the county in a neighboring county, maybe Cleveland County. But all of these counties is bastions of pockets of racist crackers. Confederates, love Confederate soldiers, even though they probably didn't even have an ancestor who was stupid enough to go fight for white people, rich, white, racist crackers who did own slaves. Because that's the history here in my county. Very few of the families, I think it was only 12, actually enslaved Africans in this county. The rest of them was poor crackers hunting, farming, begging rich white crackers to give them some handouts and what have you, and then terrorizing free black people, which we have a colonial history. My family goes back on this land. So, you know, if people just only knew, I don't know why people don't think about these things. They're programmed from birth, obviously. Let me continue. So, he told the FBI, this is what law enforcement officials testified in court to. At the time, Dylann Roof told FBI agents he was too worn out from the June 2015 shootings at Emmanuel AME Church to pursue further shootings. I don't believe that. He just got caught. Somebody turned him in. I appreciate the white woman from Gaston County who recognized this white terrorist and did not give in to her racist programming and say, oh, I don't care. That was just a bunch of black people he murdered. No, she called the police. Thank you, ma'am. But prosecutors trying him on dozens of federal charges presented evidence to jurors that Roof, armed with a handgun, ammunition, clothing, and other supplies, could potentially have been planning more violence. During roughly 2 hours on the stand, former state law enforcement division agent Brittany Burke testified that names of a handful of other churches and their addresses were found on a handwritten list in a backpack in his car. Also on papers found in Roof's car were phone numbers for the State House complex in Columbia, as well as the name of Denmark Vesey, one of the historic founders of Charleston Emmanuel AME. Not just that, but one of the leaders, along with the enslaved African. Denmark Vesey was free. I think he won his freedom in a lottery. He became a Christian. He became a Christian preacher. Went to a couple of different churches before helping to found Emmanuel. But while there, they plotted, they planned to undermine racism and white supremacy with enslaved Africans, and they plotted what was described by historians as the largest attempted slave rebellion. These were enslaved Africans, gotta watch my language. The largest rebellion against slavery in South Carolina, or this part of the world. So that's who he was. And I guess Dylann Roof, and let me back up. And they were going to do it by any means necessary. They killed to get their freedom. The plan was to commandeer one of the ships in the harbor. That's one of the major ports on the East Coast during that time and even now, and commandeer this ship and sail to Haiti, where the Haiti Revolution, black people had freed themselves. So that's what the plan was, until some, I don't know, fearful enslaved African, I think I read that it was one of these victims of rape that was confused, because the rapist white father was the master, but he didn't set them free, so he obviously didn't see them as children. But they, I don't know, got confused somehow. They told it. And the rest is history. They burnt down the church, hung black people. They were particularly barbaric with Denmark Vesey, as they mutilated his body, peeled his skin, took souvenirs. There's probably old racist crackers in South Carolina with his body parts right now that they have passed on as family heirlooms. I know that people want to hide the history because it's ugly, but hey, that's what y'all did. Don't be ashamed of it. If you think that was wrong and you about change, then why you trying to hide it? Because you not. That's why. So it says Vesey led a failed 1822 rebellion that drove the church underground. After the plot was reported, Vesey was hanged and the church was burned. The church was rebuilt, but again, why you didn't tell how they mutilated his body? All right, but Dylann Roof knew who this man was, and that's why he targeted him. But he also targeted him because he saw black people portrayed in media as meek, nonviolent people who you can beat them, you can kick them in the head. That's why they showcasing, what's his name from Georgia, John Lewis. Oh, they love trotting him out whenever Negroes get out of hand and they start these rebellions against racism and slavery. They try him out. Oh, don't break no windows. Oh, don't set no buildings on fire. Oh, don't cuss out the police. Don't smash the police car, slave catchers, police window. Oh, don't do that. Back in my day, I used to let them racist crackers hit me in the head with batons, run me over with horses, put their foot up my behind, and that's the way you do it. Jesus. Tell you, man. So, it says that Roof told FBI agents he left bullets in a magazine so that he could kill himself after the slayings, but changed his mind when he didn't see any police immediately after the shooting. He said, oh, no, I wasn't going to go kill no more black folks. I was so tired from shooting all them black folks. You know, pulling a trigger is hard work. And then they was hiding under tables and trying to get away from me. And, you know, I had to just look for them before I could gun them down and what have you. Give me a break. This is a long article, so I have to jump down. Where is the excerpt about them being meek? Or did they remove that part? Hold up. Let me back up. Let me see. I mean, this dude was armed. He had prepared this terrorist act. So they left that part out. But if you Google it, which I'm going to just do right now, Dylann Roof, targeted meek. See what that pulls up. Let me see. Because I did take a screenshot where it was talking about, here's an excerpt from WPXI Pittsburgh that was published on December the 6th. Let me see. Charleston church shooter Dylann Roof's own words to portray him. Let me pull this up because it's mixed in with some other stories. Let me pull this up. But it says he targeted them because they are meek. But they're playing along with the whole fake news stuff. Well, he got a fake education. He didn't know that the South had won the war and Confederate generals and senators were welcomed back into Congress, and they helped write the 13th Amendment, which put the exception clause for slavery. All y'all got to do is pass some laws, then use those laws to target black people, and you can put them back into slavery. If you get a conviction from all white juries, then once we get them into prison, we can lease them back out to your farms, out to the corporations, back to the mines, to the railroad companies, and we'll continue practicing. Say, see, he didn't know that. He didn't know that. He thought black people was actually not being targeted and that they had made some kind of gains against slavery and white supremacy. Yeah, they trying to hide that part from me. I'm trying to find it. But take my word for it. I don't want to hold up the show by trying to find it. But he chose to slaughter those who were more likely to be meek. He did not want to go to he first thought about targeting drug dealers, but he told them they might shoot back. Okay. So again, this is a reason why when these sort of tragedies happen and the media comes shoving a camera in your face with a loaded question and playing on your emotions and your religious faith, and don't be coming out your mouth, oh, I forgive him, Jesus died for him too, and this man ain't repentant whatsoever. He ain't repentant. He ain't even asked God for forgiveness. In fact, his God is something different than your God. The God he prayed to ain't the same God you pray to. Okay? And he's probably thinking he gonna be rewarded. So I don't know if he's a Christian or not, but that is how white people practice Christianity. A number of them. So we had to quit putting forth this meek image. We had to do like our ancestors did, like the ancestors who founded Emmanuel Church. They weren't nonviolent Christians. They believed life to be sacred. And whose life is more sacred than your own? So it's time out for the alarm. I'm not blaming anybody because I know the programming that you've been getting for decades and decades, not only from quote unquote religious institutions and bought and paid for religious figures, but the propaganda from Hollywood and the movies and people like John Lewis. That was not everybody. Read books like We Will Shoot Back or that nonviolent stuff will get you killed and how guns won the civil rights movement. Again, there was nothing won. Was a period of resistance, no doubt, but we ain't won because they still practicing slavery. And they're still committing acts of terrorism. And it should say something to you that Dylann Roof, he even had Pinckney's, one article I was reading, he had Pinckney's name as well as Denmark Vesey's. That man was more than the pastor of that church. He was a state senator. This was also a political assassination. So this is still the system upholding racism and white supremacy by treating this man with kid gloves, charging him with the very least. They don't want a riot on their hands. They don't want another rebellion. They don't want black people in that area of the world doing like black people who went to Emmanuel Church and rising up against slavery and burning down Master's house. They don't want that. So they gonna go through a trial and they praying that he get a conviction, that they get a conviction. Because if they don't, well, I'll leave it to your imagination. Let's see, next story. Let me check the board. See if we have any questions or comments, because I'm about to move on to another story and get through these stories kind of quickly. But image is important. Malcolm X talked about that. But if you have any questions or comments, dial 866-510-9025, hit ***. But Malcolm X, I played that clip. I'm sure you all may have heard where he talked about the American news media has been successful in putting forth this image. Let me find the clip, matter of fact, because I do believe I can find it quickly. But he talked about the American news media creating this image of the black man here in America, of this weak, meek Negro who ain't got no courage or sense enough to pick up arms and defend himself. The media pushes out that weak image to the world, but also to us and our children, and we buy into it, and it gets reinforced, and ain't nobody got their freedom begging. They just ain't done it. So let me find speeches with music. Might be in here. Let me see. Malcolm X, do things for ourselves. What kind of democracy? On white terrorism resistance. Maybe I need to play that as well. Robert Williams, meeting violence with violence. Let's see, what kind of democracy? Do things for ourselves, for nonviolence to work. Let me see. And I don't see that particular clip. All right, I'll try to find it later, but you may recall his speech where he talks about, let me see, completed tracks. Let me see if it's in here. He talks about the American news media. He talked about it a lot, people. He really, really did. They really don't put forth just how much he talked about the power of the media. But he understood it and he tried to use it. That's why what was the Nation of Islam paper had such a wide circulation when he was in charge of it. So, but that's all I have to say about this terrorist who hasn't been charged as a terrorist. But I'm going to move on to Barack Obama, CEO Obama. Let me say his proper title, because some people get upset. That's our president. No. So Trevor Noah, let me play this clip. He was on The Daily Show, which is a comedy show by corporate media meant to target quote unquote millennials with political information, and they do share some good information. Sometimes they're on the right sides of the issue, but make no mistake that they're seen to be a part of the corporate apparatus. Because Trevor Noah don't ask no really tough questions of no Democrats. All right, so let me play that clip of President Obama's, just an excerpt. Now, also he talked about personal racism that he faced in this same interview, but that's to suck black people in so y'all can self-identify with him and say he's one of us, even though his actions would not suggest that. We shouldn't have to put any kind of demands on a person who practices justice, especially if they identify with us and feel our pain and suffering. They know the deal. You know, we shouldn't have to put pressure on them. We shouldn't have to put those demands on them. But he's going to play the racism card to his advantage in advancing the fake news story about Russians influenced the election. So that's to suck black people in so that they are circulating fake news stories by the email, calling for new elections, and even the CIA said the election was, oh man, I did a whole show on it yesterday. But so here is, right on cue, President Obama making an appearance. Of course, this was pre-recorded. It's all coming out at the same time because it's playing propaganda. That's why all the headlines sound the same. But I'm gonna play this clip of Mr. Obama pushing post-election lies. Don't get sucked in, black people.
US President Barack Obama sits down with Trevor Noah from Comedy Central's The Daily Show, but the discussion is not intended to induce the usual laughs. Last week, a US official said the CIA had concluded Russia had intervened in the 2016 presidential election. Obama is now calling for a comprehensive review.
The reason that I have called for a review is really to just gather all the threads of the investigations, the intelligence work that has been done over many months, and put it in a single document that can be shared with members of Congress, relevant intelligence agencies. They can be shared with the transition team so that they understand what exactly happened, and so that the public and our elected representatives going forward can find ways to prevent this kind of interference from having an impact on the elections in the future.
Let me pause it and make a note there. Did you notice he said he named everybody who could see this secret intelligence, but not the public, so they can make it available to the public? No, we didn't hear that. So then why is he going to then turn around and say so the public can make sure? Dude, y'all, I'm sure y'all not telling the truth is what I'm sure of. I'm sure of your history of lying. I'm sure of the United States Corporation, USA Inc., and its intelligence agencies putting forth lies and what have you. But people, this is a dangerous game they playing. There was no electronic voting, flipping like we saw during the Bush elections. They're talking about these hacks of the DNC email, where they even talk about the DNC and the Hillary Clinton using their contacts in the media to elevate Donald Trump. Why we ain't talking about that? Influencing. But again, I don't want to rehash yesterday's show. I probably talked almost 2 hours about that. So check that show out. But this here, right on cue, CEO Obama, to advance the lies coming out his administration. They might be planning a coup. Who knows what they planning? This makes no sense. I've never seen this before in history. And the corporate media is pushing this, and we ain't heard no sources. We don't know who Joe Blow could have. I don't know. They could have come, it could have been a homeless dude was their source. I don't know. And you don't know. So why are you taking it as fact? Anybody out there taking it as fact? So I want to share Ron Paul, a clip from Ron Paul There was an article published on antiwar.com. He said, who do you believe? Whistleblowers who've been showing you for years government corruption, put their freedom and their lives on the line to expose the element of white supremacy behind the scenes, even if they don't recognize that's what they doing. Because Ron Paul, I've been vetting this man since 2008, and they even trying to target his website, saying he part of the fake news. This man was a congressperson for 20 plus years, ran for president for twice. Whether he's a racist or not, I saw no evidence of that. I saw some writings that he said he didn't write, that some ghostwriter wrote on a website bearing his name. But I was listening to what the man was saying, and what was he saying? The drug war is racist, the death penalty is racist. But what did the black showcase people had y'all chasing after? Some doggone article that was written over 20 years ago on a website bearing his name that he had some relationship with through selling gold. So you chasing that instead of listening to what he exposing now. When, man, this man in the 70s, before any of these other people who were calling the drug war racist in Congress was saying it. So again, that's why they attacking him. I've even seen new articles talking about how did the alt-right, I'm not using their terms. These are racists, the same racists by any other name. I'm not using their names, okay? That alt-right crap. But I saw an article talking about, oh, these was the same people that was behind Ron Paul. Well, I voted for Ron Paul both times he ran. I am not a racist cracker, as you can see. And I guarantee you, you can check my actions. You will not find the behavior of a proxy racist. Trying to get paid, exploiting other non-white people in this system. So anyway, Ron Paul asked a very logical question. Who do you believe, the whistleblowers, or you gonna believe John McCain and Lindsey Graham? You gonna believe them? These the same ones. Wasn't John McCain just photographed not that long ago, standing with people, al-Nusra, members of al-Nusra, where he ran over there on his own, ignoring proper protocol and channels, and ran over there and took a meeting with them terrorists called the Free Syrian Army? Huh? And they know Hillary Clinton, because we know from her emails, she plans to ramp up the war in Syria. Russia has said, no, we're not going to allow you to do that. China has said, we're not just going to allow y'all to run roughshod. So they pushing us towards global. That's what Hillary Clinton was pushing us towards. Donald Trump still trying to get a handle on his foreign policy, but the people that he is appointing, they warmongers too. But we knew for a fact that Hillary Clinton was a warmonger, and John McCain, I have shared pictures of Hillary Clinton doing fundraisers at the John McCain Institute, which had gotten a $1 million donation from the Saudis. He's probably one of those who voted against the 9/11 bill that allowed victims to sue Saudi Arabia in civil court. That's who John McCain and Graham is. So Daniel McAdams wrote this, and then I'll let you hear a clip from Ron Paul's Liberty Report with the Washington Post, published that unsourced article, and everybody else fell along because they all part of the same CIA disinformation program. But Ron Paul Liberty site they named him among those fake news sites that these unnamed so-called government analysts, whoever, unnamed, and Washington Post running it like, again, Black Agenda Report was on there. Most of our listeners are aware of Black Agenda Report. Y'all know they ain't fake news, that Glenn Ford and the crew over there take their work very serious in informing black people about this racist system, telling them about Republicans and Democrats. So this particular article excerpt says, on one hand, we had the Washington Post reporting that the CIA has determined that the Russians have hacked the U.S. election to put Donald Trump in the White House. The evidence is secret, But the CIA and the Post wouldn't lie, would they? Then we have global warmongering senators John McCain, a Republican out of Arizona, and Lindsey Graham, a Republican out of North Carolina, demanding that the U.S. take action against Russia in retaliation for the hack that was reported by the Washington Post based on a secret briefing by the CIA. What does you want to do, old John Criminal McCain? Bomb them like you were singing bomb, 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 Iran? Huh? Is that what you want to happen here? We know that's what you want to happen. He never saw a war that he didn't want to send young Americans to die in for corporate interests. So this is supposed to be this secret briefing from the CIA, but then on the other hand, we have WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, whose organization published the leaked DNC documents saying that Russian hackers weren't the source. What they're saying is the source was somebody from inside the DNC. This is what we got to do to undermine racism, white supremacy, injustice, whatever you want to call it. We got to work from the inside. We can't go along to get along. We got to infiltrate. We got to look to flip people in these institutions to where they will leak these documents, exposing the criminality of these criminals. Instead of us going to the polls, voting for criminals. This is what we need. So I don't want to say who it was because I don't know. There's some speculation, but that's all it is speculation. So I'm not going to report it as fact. But they say this person was in the DNC and they are the source of, insider is the source of the leaks. So let's go ahead and play this clip from Ron Paul's Liberty Report and hear what he has to say about what the Obama administration and the CIA is full of people appointed by him. So it's the Obama administration is pushing these post-election lies. So here we go.
US President-elect Donald Trump has said Russia had no...
There's a lot of excitement from talking about an election that's already gone. For months, a lot of people, including myself, we were anxious to get the election behind us and maybe get away from some of this, but it looks like the election is still going on. We're going to maybe get the CIA involved, the Russians involved, and who knows who else is going to get involved to find out really who won this election and was there any cheating? Were the Russians involved? Wow, this is getting to be pretty important. But you know, it seems like finding out the truth is the big deal here, and there's a lot of false statements being made now, and charges made about what the Russians have done. Did the Russians get involved and mess it up, and maybe the election is not authentic, at least maybe not technically and legally, but at least emotionally wise, to distract from any support that the president-to-be will have when he's in office. So there's a lot of things going on, but it's not easy to sort out the truth from the fiction. And of course, that's the reason we put a title up. Should we believe people like Assange and Ed Snowden, or are our friends in the Senate, McCain and Graham, are they the ones who really know what's going on? I could guess which side you might come down on, but what do you think's going on, and why do you think there's such a big thing going on with this election? It's obviously not going to be let loose. Or is it just the fact that the Democrats are poor losers and they want to keep it going, or do they have a sincere desire to make sure that truth prevails and our country is prosperous and secure?
Well, I think there are a number of interests that are pushing this story. The story being that the Russians somehow hacked into the system and influenced the vote in favor of Trump. Intelligence agencies don't do that sort of thing, do they?
Never.
But, the Washington Post and the New York Times and the rest of the mainstream media has been pushing this story. A huge story broke in the Washington Post on Friday about this. And that's why we're talking about today, C-SPAN or CNN, and everyone's talking about it this morning. And the story is interesting. And if I could just make 3 points about the story itself, because these stories are fascinating when you look at how they're sourced. And if you'll just bear with me for a second, this is the Washington Post on Friday that set this whole storm rolling. It's the assessment of the intelligence community that Russia's government wants to favor one candidate over the other. That sounds pretty serious. Said a senior government official briefed on an intelligence presentation made to U.S. senators. Sounds like a mouthful, but when you break that apart and look at what they're actually saying, they're saying, here's a guy or gal who talked to somebody who was in the Senate briefing. And they won't say who it is. It's several persons removed, and you don't know, does that person have an interest in pushing forth this story? What if it was Victoria Nuland? She's a senior government official. She has a stake in delegitimizing the Trump presidency. She was going to be Secretary of State under Clinton. But there are a couple more we can go over later, but it raises a huge number of issues about journalistic ethics when it comes to the Washington Post. Dare I say it might be a fake story.
Yes, there's a lot of fake information in this. But, you know, the big question is about the hacking and where the emails came. Did the Russians really, hack, the emails of the Democratic Party? Well, Assange has spoken out on this, and he says, no way, the Russians were involved, or at least the Russian government. He declined. But, several people have made the point that if they're really sincere about finding this, what we don't need, you won't get it by having a couple people, a couple Republicans and a couple Democrats getting together and holding a couple days worth of hearings to bring about the truth. But guess what? They're not going to bring the people to those committees that could give them the truth, because there is a few people in our government that knows everything, and that of course is the NSA, and they have the information. They would know exactly where this came from, but they're rather silent on this. And of course, when you read that report, you find out that it's always anonymous, but the headlines are so different. They're misleading. It sounds almost like a politician wrote those things, just to mislead the people. And figuring this out is a big job. But I just don't think that Lindsey Graham and McCain are on the right side of this issue, because there's too many that have a big stake in bashing Russia and blaming Russia for everything. And, if they can't blame Russia for all the tragedies in the Middle East, and that we may have some responsibilities there, that maybe we can get the Russians blamed on here to stir up animosity between the Russians and the United States.
And that's a good point. And I think it was William Binney who made the point, and he was a NSA whistleblower. He's the one that blew the whistle on the mass surveillance system that they were building. And I'm sure every time that I send you an email, hey, Dr. Paul, which we do for the show, I'm sure it's recorded somewhere. So they wouldn't have this, hey, how do we hack the DNC? The information's got to be there somewhere. But, again, when you look into the Washington Post story that's, sensationalized in the media, but when you get past these first assessments, they've determined that they were in there to get Trump to win. Then you talk about the CIA presentation. The CIA presentation, for which they do not have a source, they only have a source who talked to someone who was there, fell short of a formal U.S. assessment produced by all 17 intelligence agencies. So that means it was not an official product of the intelligence community, big I, big C. So it didn't have to go through the entire rigorous process whereby you can take a footnote if you're a different agency. And remember, famously, it was INR at the State Department that took a footnote on the Iraq assessment back before the war. They turned out to be right. So it didn't go through this process. They also said we don't have specific intelligence showing officials in the Kremlin directing the identified officials to pass the Democratic emails. So the question is, who might be these briefers and what might be their incentive if they did say what the Post says? Well, a lot of the senior people are Obama appointees in the CIA. Could it be someone with an axe to grind?
Yeah, and the timing is interesting, too, because obviously if they knew what they claimed they knew it before the elections, and if they knew it was going on, maybe they would have done something about it. But it looks to me like it's a continuation of the elections. There's some people that are really upset about the election, and they want to continue the chaos. And the other thing that feeds into this is the popular vote. The fact that the popular vote came out on the side of Hillary. So that's really feeds into this too. And I think they want chaos, and a lot of people like that. And you take like the Republicans who are sympathetic to this investigation, like McCain and Graham. They have an agenda. This is an opportunity, and they're not going to miss this opportunity because they want desperately to stop Trump, from even making some overtures toward Russia. Maybe peace will break out or something. So this is this to me is a lot to do about protecting special interests, people taking advantage of this, and I think that's what's going on.
I thought that it was a matter of real concern that planted stories intended to serve a national purpose abroad came home and were circulated here and believed here, because this would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. Now, we're looking at that very carefully.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
At CBS, we had been contacted by the CIA. As a matter of fact, by the time I became the head of the whole news and public affairs operation in 1954, the ships had been established, and I was told about them and asked if I'd carry on with them.
We have quite a lot of detailed information, and we will evaluate it, and we will include any evidence of wrongdoing or any evidence of impropriety in our final report and make recommendations.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to the national news services, AP and UPI?
Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
Senator, do you think that you named the news organizations in your final report?
That remains to be decided.
I think it was entirely in order for our correspondents at that time to make use of the CIA agent chiefs of station and other members of the executive staff of CIA as sources of information which were useful in their assessments of...
All right, let me shut it down right there. I just wanted to play that from some 1970s era congressional hearings. Again, I talked about this yesterday, Operation Mockingbird. If you think that these people have changed their tunes, they have not. The operation is still going on. And President Obama, again, like I said yesterday, do not hold him up as a role model for any of your children. This man is immoral. He is sold out for the corporation that he represents. He don't represent black folk. He represents USA Inc. and the people in control of the corporation. That's who he represents. So I had cut off what he said on the comedy show, The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. But this man, he's lying through his teeth. He should be ashamed of himself. They are going to get people killed, like Ron Paul said. They looking to create chaos in the streets. They try to stop this man, postpone, hold new elections and all that kind of garbage, when no state in this union has reported that any voting machines were hacked or votes were changed and massive voter fraud. No, none of that is being alleged like was being reported on in 2000. So why are you allowing them to manipulate you with words talking about the Russians influenced the election? Because the DNC's internal emails and Hillary Clinton's emails from her private server, she shouldn't have set up and should be prosecuted for all that information of our crimes that we are committing and unethical shenanigans we're involved in to steal the nomination from Bernie Sanders and elevate Donald Trump as the Republican so Hillary will have an easy cakewalk. But see, they thought they had did just enough. They thought they had did just enough. But again, key demographics are the reason Hillary Clinton did not win this election. And I guess they weren't able to pull off the massive voter fraud that they were hoping to because people were watching. And they lost. And the media helped elevate Trump. Y'all was asking the question, why the media giving so much attention to Donald Trump? Well, Hillary's emails tell you that. But no, they want to direct your attention away from Hillary Clinton and the DNC and the Democratic Party's crime and down point the finger at Russia. Because they already illegally arming them Syrian rebels / terrorists, sent military, put boots on the ground. Where's the declaration of war? You weren't invited in to that country by the sitting government. You're there illegally. So again, we're talking about criminals here. And they use the media to manipulate your mind so that you will co-sign on to their crimes. But again, my children chose not to go in the military. But one thing that is their downfall to white supremacy is they running out of foot soldiers for white supremacy because of too many wars. So if they just keep on starting wars and ramping up at the rich, powerful races on the planet have their way, all these poor racist crackers where I live, man, y'all gonna be extinct in 20 years, 30 years. You ain't just gonna be the minority population. Y'all gonna be absorbed into the other populations. Which kind of leads me into my next story about, no, that's jumping ahead of myself. The next story I'll just share briefly. I already mentioned Keith Ellison is under an attack. You can see from this article published in the Washington Times, watchdog group to file ethics complaint against Keith Ellison. The Washington Times is reporting that there's this right-wing group. What's the name of the group? Let me pull it up. This is a coordinated attack by Zionists and right-wing elements of the Republican Party, so-called conservatives, but it says a conservative watchdog group plans to file an ethics complaint Monday against Representative Keith Ellison, accusing the Minnesota Democrat of improperly, just waiting on this article to settle down, using his official congressional resources in his bid to become the next chairman of the DNC, that's the Democratic National Committee. The Washington-based Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust, a nonprofit group, charges in the complaint it plans to file with the House Ethics Committee that Mr. Ellison violated rules by promoting his candidacy for DNC chair on several occasions on his official Twitter account. Come on, really? Really? Man, they really that should tell you something. They see Keith Ellison as a threat to the Zionist agenda. The progressive wing of the Democratic Party does want to afford human rights and call Israel to account for the human rights violations that they are practicing against the Palestinian people. And so this is what's going on here. So you got Zionists in the Democratic Party, you got Zionists in the Republican Party, and Zionism is racism, like Malcolm X said. Talking about Zionism, as Hillary Clinton once cried about and said she was going to outlaw free speech, saying Zionism or talking about Zionism is not anti-Semitism. Okay, it's not. And these Zionists in control of Israel are even practicing racism against other Jews that y'all don't recognize as Jews because they ain't not white. They skin not white. They skin is black, melanated. They Ethiopians. They didn't come European populations in Europe. So this group said he used his Twitter account, so that's what the ethic. Man, please, this is crazy, but this is serious. Throughout numerous posts, Ellison has asked for the support of his candidacy, thanked other members for the endorsement of his candidacy, linked the videos in which he spoke about why he wanted the political position, and linked to his campaign website, Matthew G. Whitaker, Facts Executive Director, said in the complaint. Ellison's posts have included nearly every type of explicitly prohibited content, campaign and political information, links to his campaign website, and advocacy for grassroots organizing in his positions. So wait a minute. Twitter is free, is it not? Do you have to pay? So how is that an official congressional resource? It's free. Nobody paid any money for that account. It's a public account. It's in his name. Wow, man. These people, they never stop. So they're really grasping at straws right now to prevent him, along with the ADL, of assuming the chairmanship and pushing forth a non-Zionist Democratic plank in their platforms in the future. That's what's going on there. Okay, next story. That was by the Washington Times again. The next story. Rural U.S. babies are the hardest hit by opiate addiction at birth. This is what I was talking about in the beginning about the black crack babies of the 80s and the 90s after the CIA flooded our communities. This was in congressional hearings, many documentaries. We had major players like Rick Ross himself tell the truth about who his connect was and how he got his connect through the CIA. Got this cheap cocaine that he turned into crack and then distributed to the black community. And then the money part of the money going to the CIA so they could fund their death squads of South America and to overthrow democratically elected leftist governments, as they called them. Reagan and them, the CIA. And so y'all want to trust the CIA? Y'all act like these are ethical people. They're not. So, but anyway, it appears now what happened to the black community in the 80s and 90s with CIA facilitated crack cocaine is now happening to the white babies in the rural areas like where I live. So Reuters is trying to be codified and not say white babies because they don't want to portray white mothers as drug addicts. They don't want to demonize these white mothers and white babies like they was doing black people in the 80s and the 90s. So let me pull up that article. This is a Reuters article. Again, I know that they have a history of working with the CIA, but certain things, facts are the facts. It's mostly the political stuff you got to watch out on. As a growing number of U.S. babies are being born suffering withdrawal syndrome after exposure to prescription opiates or heroin in utero, rural infants appear much more at risk than city newborns, a new study suggests. Researchers focus on what's known as neonatal abstinence syndrome, a condition akin to withdrawal that develops when babies essentially become addicted to drugs their mothers use during pregnancy. For rural babies nationwide, the rate of neonatal abstinence syndrome surged from 1.2 cases per 1,000 hospital births in 2004 to 7.5 cases per 1,000 births by 2013. This is after they invaded Afghanistan, freed up all that farmland to grow that good opium so that they could fund the stuff off the books that they do. The study found, the study didn't find that, I said that. Anyway, the increase wasn't as pronounced for city infants, rising from 1.4 cases per 1,000 births at the start of the study period to 4.8 cases per 1,000 by the end. I bet you these are still white babies in the city because heroin is just not that popular of a drug in the black community. Most people, and that's everybody, regardless of classification, use cannabis. But there is a lot of this cheap heroin that's flooding the streets for the purpose that I keep stating. The same purpose the CIA flooded Black America to fund their illegal dirty wars. They figure, oh, we didn't learn our lesson and we might not be able to sneak that one on them. But hey, let's do it to white America. They seem to like these opiates, and we can flood the street with heroin, cheap heroin, and we'll have some money to continue to produce fake news and overthrow countries and stuff like they was doing to Libya and Honduras and all of that. So, also says, while other research has pointed to a recent rise in U.S. babies born with opiate withdrawal issues, the current study highlights the disproportionate burden borne by rural infants. Again, that's code word for white, said lead study author Dr. Nicole Valapiano, a pediatrics researcher at the University of Michigan C.S. Mott Children's Hospital in Ann Arbor. Prior to our study, we had limited data from a few states like West Virginia and Tennessee that showed rising states of neonatal abstinence syndrome in some rural counties. Piano said by email. What we didn't know was how the opioid crisis has affected rural moms and their infants across the country. So, tell y'all, white America getting hit hard. This is leading to their extinction. They should have seen it coming. See, they should have stood up when black people was being targeted with these drugs and supported us in these hearings and demanding accountability, but you didn't because you didn't care. And now it has helped come to your doorstep, in your community, and your soccer moms are being turned out and babies being born addicted to drugs. Again, I am not one of them drug war warriors because I know the government is most responsible for quote unquote illegal drugs being on the street. Go look up the YouTube videos of them Marines over there guarding the poppy fields and making excuses. One of them, it was a captain gave an interview saying, well, we got to let them grow poppy because this the only income that they can raise. See, this is a very poor country, and poppy is the only way they can feed their family. They ain't saying that about, they didn't say that about black people selling drugs in poor areas because they couldn't find jobs because of discrimination or other factors of why there are no jobs. They weren't making that excuse, was it? But you had a captain of the U.S. Army, shame on you, over there guarding drugs so that they can be sent back home. Y'all think I'm lying? Go look it up. So they can send the drugs back home so they can continue to fund their off-the-books operations at the expense of who? You know who. These poor, expendable crackers. Same ones that they tricked into going into a civil war to benefit racist white crackers with a lot of money who own slaves, even though they were poor and didn't own the slaves. See, that's again the low self-esteem. At least I'm better than a nigger. At least I'm not a slave. Whatever. Look what's happening to you. Sometimes the universe does return what you put out there on other people. But again, I'm a sympathetic person. I don't think these babies should be victimized by the CIA or anybody else involved in flooding these streets with all this cheap heroin from Afghanistan. But again, I don't want to see these people in prison. And I'm willing to bet you they ain't being jailed. They not being jailed. I can't say that with all 100% certainty, but let's call it an educated guess. I bet you if somebody did the research, pulled up the statistical data from the 80s and the 90s and see how many mothers were arrested for having crack-addicted babies, and then you compare that to current arrests in rural America where all these soccer moms is having heroin-addicted babies. I bet you they ain't being hauled in there like that. Now, I will admit, Gaston County Jail is full of drug-addicted white people. There's more of them in there than anybody else, but I don't think they should be there. I think they should get help if they want help. If they want to destroy their brains, smoking crystal meth as adults, as long as they not giving it to children, forcing it on anybody who don't want it, let them go in them woods and cook up the meth they want and smoke all the meth they want, because that makes them least capable race soldiers. Let them destroy their brains. I don't care. But then also, just based on justice, we may not agree with the health implications of people doing things, let's say these lifestyle choices that have shown to have a detrimental impact on your overall life. It's not that we support them, but then ain't like slavery is helping them, okay? So let's not pretend. Because then they go into slavery and they get murdered in the jails and raped by the guards and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, man, that should be headline news. That should be headline news. Why are all these white people on these drugs? They blaming it on the doctors. I don't see a bunch of doctors being rounded up for drug dealing. Let me see. Speaking of jails, let's pull up this story from ABC News. I only have a few more minutes to go. Got Tando radio show coming up. We couldn't get a promo up. Internet was out. I'll get it up during the program, but we have his profile page we'll send out in a blast to our social media networks. But just to let you know, Tando radio show coming up here in 10 minutes. The Justice Department on Monday said it will investigate a Virginia jail after the deaths of 2 inmates, and criticism of healthcare services continued to mount from state officials and civil rights groups. The department said in a press release that it will determine if prisoners at the Hampton Roads Regional Jail in Portsmouth received proper medical treatment and psychological services. In particular, the probe will focus on whether the jail violated the rights of mentally ill inmates. Jamichael Mitchell, 24, an inmate with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, died there last year. A medical examiner said the cause was heart failure accompanied by severe weight loss. They starved the dude. His family filed a lawsuit in May in which other inmates said correctional officials physically abused him and withheld food. Earlier this year, inmate Henry Stewart, 60, filled out an emergency grievance form saying he had blacked out twice in less than 24 hours and couldn't hold down food or water. He died 2 days later. The grievance form said a nurse determined his concerns not to be an emergency. It said Stewart had refused medication, had been evaluated by off-site specialists. Stewart's family found the form among his belongings at the jail. It's likely that they didn't. They probably fabricated those reports afterwards, claiming that he got treatment. So it goes on and on. Of course, the jail is denying any wrongdoing, because who gives a damn about modern slaves in this system? We see the same treatment that was going on pre-1865 slavery as we see post-1865 slavery. And so sending people, drug addicts, to jail is helping them stay off drugs. Yeah, guards sell them drugs all the time. Let me see. Next story. Supervisors out of Milwaukee are offering a resolution to require outside investigations of deaths at the Milwaukee County Jail, mandate they don't have the authority to impose, according to county lawyers. See, they trying to protect slavery. County Board Chairman Theodore Lipscomb Sr. and Supervisor Supreme Moore Omokunde are sponsoring the resolution announced Monday afternoon in light of 4 deaths since April at the jail. And this is our friend, no doubt. Let me throw his picture up there. This is our friend. Here's the article. And here is the man who was elected and therefore most responsible. Milwaukee Sheriff David Clark, who is in a Huffington Post article being quoted as blaming the victims. Again, there was a pregnant inmate close, about 9 months, close to giving birth. She got arrested, put in jail for a ticket or something. She goes into labor in the jail cell. She's begging these slave catchers or plantation overseers for medical attention that she's having her baby, and they ignore her. And her baby's born on the dirty jail floor and died. And he blaming her. He blaming her. Similar people, other people with other medical issues, same thing, he's blaming them. Why isn't the Justice Department investigating them? What, they need a report, somebody file an official complaint or something? Again, don't they have a U.S. attorney in that region? Don't they monitor the news? I heard from Reverend Barber of the NAACP here in North Carolina that you can use news reports from investigative reporting to file complaints. So why do you have to wait for somebody to file a complaint? Don't they monitor the news? Why do we have to? Because they ain't practicing justice. They wouldn't sit around waiting on somebody to file an official complaint. They would see these news articles and they would go in and they would investigate on probable cause. They have probable cause. They don't need a complaint. Wake up, people. Federal government don't exist to protect you from slavery when they practicing slavery. All of these little investigations are window dressing when 97+% of the cases find that the slave catchers did nothing wrong. This is nothing but to pacify you and make you think something's going to be done, and nothing's going to be done. Last story, Ron Paul, War on Fake News, part of a war on free speech. I posted that again, btrcommunity.com, our social media website. And you can read the rest of it, but what they did was publish an article by Ron Paul on townhall.com, a right-wing conservative website that showcases black people like Allen West, proxy racist, black slaver in the 21st century. And they showcase so that they can deflect and say, hey, we're not racist. We down with Allen West. We even publish his articles and all that. But now they are even starting to see the danger of the CIA and these corporate media making up these fake news stories so that they can take away our freedom of speech. So you're seeing people with different political ideologies identifying the same threat, and whether or not they work together, because see, you can work together while not working together. You launch your war front against the enemy over there, you launch your war front on the enemy from over there. We ain't got to coordinate, but we gonna kill this beast by 1,000 paper cuts. That's how we gonna do it. I hope everybody is laying aside their partisan political programming and seeing this threat for what it is, because it is most certainly a threat. They want to take out Black Talk Radio Network. They want to take out Black Agenda Report. They want to take out anybody that they cannot buy and influence. And hell, that includes some of these right-wing conservative racist sites. They can't control them. So they want to shut them down because they may have cost Hillary Clinton, the corporate, sponsored candidate. They didn't, they were trying to help her get in, or they stopped her from getting in. So just got to pay attention, people. All right, that's my program. I'm going to call it a day. Man, I went kind of over. Tando Radio Show is coming on as soon as I change out the YouTube stream. You're listening to Black Talk Radio News. I hope that I share some information with you that you can use or help you become less confused on anything. And it's not that I know so much more than other people, but I have more time than other people to do in-depth research, and I do provide my sources. So recognize that we are not in a good place, period. And it's going to take some heart, it's going to take some courage, but it's most importantly going to take honesty in order for us to reverse this course that humanity is on, where it is devaluing human life and continuing to expand slavery and human trafficking. Get in where you fit in on this fight. Everybody got something to contribute. If you're not on the right side of this slavery issue, then guess what? If you're not an abolitionist, then you an enemy. And I'm calling you out. And we coming for you. We not sit idly by and allow this thing. There's moves being made. that you ain't gonna see on CNN. So peace and blessings to all y'all. Be safe out there.
No.